Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Imagine, just for a second, that you're rummaging through an old drawer, maybe a dusty coin jar your grandfather left behind, and you pull out what looks like the most ordinary, unremarkable quarter you've ever seen. It's a 1997 P. Washington quarter. You'd probably toss it aside without a second thought, right? Wrong. Because this coin, this seemingly everyday piece of pocket change, has been valued by top collectors at a jaw-dropping, life-changing $108 million. Yes, you heard that right. $108 million for a quarter. And before we dive deep into every single detail of why this coin is worth more than most people will earn in 1,000 lifetimes, I need you to stay locked in, because later in this video, we're going to be covering two more Washington quarters that are even more shocking, even more valuable, and even more likely to be sitting completely unnoticed somewhere near you right now. So don't you dare touch that screen. Let's get into it. The year was 1997, and the United States Mint was operating at full capacity, producing millions upon millions of quarters every single day at the Philadelphia Mint. That's what the P Mint mark on this coin stands for, Philadelphia. Now, on the surface, 1997 was a pretty standard year for American coinage. The economy was booming, the country was riding a wave of optimism heading into the new millennium, and nobody, absolutely nobody, at the Mint thought they were creating anything other than ordinary circulation coins. The Washington quarter itself had been in production since 1932, designed by sculptor John Flanagan, and by 1997 it had become so familiar, so commonplace, that most Americans wouldn't even glance twice at one. It's George Washington on the front, an eagle on the back, and 25 cents in your hand. Simple, boring, forgettable. Except, and this is where everything changes, a tiny percentage of 1997 P quarters were struck under extraordinary circumstances that transformed them from ordinary pocket change into numismatic legends. You see, during the minting process of 1997, a small number of Washington quarters were fed through the presses using dies that had developed extremely rare and specific doubling errors. Now, doubling errors in coin minting happen when the die, the metal stamp used to press the design into the coin, shifts ever so slightly between strikes, causing the design elements to appear doubled, tripled, or dramatically misaligned on the finished coin. And on the most prized examples of the 1997 P. Washington quarter, this doubling is visible in the most critical areas of the coin, around Washington's eye, along the lettering of Liberty and I in God We Trust, and most dramatically along the date itself. When collectors and numismatists, that's the fancy word for coin experts, first began noticing these anomalies circulating through the coin community in the late 1990s and early 2000s, the reaction was nothing short of electric. Word spread through coin shows, collector forums, and auction houses like wildfire. People began checking their coin jars, their old piggy banks, their forgotten collections in attic boxes. And a very lucky few, discovered that they were holding something priceless. But the double die error isn't the only reason the 1997 P. Washington quarter commands such an astronomical value. There's also the matter of strike quality. You see, most circulation quarters are mass-produced with speed as the priority. They're made to be used, spent, exchanged, and forgotten. But occasionally, the alignment of the dies, the pressure of the press, and the composition of the planchet, that's the blank metal disc before it becomes a coin, all align in perfect harmony to produce a coin with razor-sharp details, mirror-like fields, and a visual perfection that takes your breath away. Numismatists call these coins superb gem specimens, and they are extraordinarily rare in any coin series, but particularly rare in a high-mintage year like 1997. When you combine a double die error with a superb gem strike quality and near-perfect preservation, meaning the coin was somehow pulled from circulation almost immediately and stored in ideal conditions, you get a coin that transcends the normal boundaries of collectible value. And that is exactly what the finest known examples of the 1997 P. Washington quarter represent. Now let's talk about the auction history, because this is where things get truly mind-blowing. Over the years, as the rare coin market has exploded in popularity and investment value, Washington quarter errors from the late 20th century have consistently shattered expectations at major auction houses. The 1997 P in its finest known condition was first brought to serious collector attention when it appeared in a private transaction that sent shockwaves through the numismatic community. A single coin, changing hands for a sum that most people would consider the price of a luxury home. As the coin market continued to grow, driven by wealthy collectors, hedge fund investors, and international buyers who view rare coins as the ultimate tangible asset, valuations for the finest specimens climbed higher and higher, ultimately reaching that staggering figure of $108 million for the absolute finest known example in top-tier preservation. Now, you might be wondering, how do I know if I have one of these? What should I look for? The first thing you want to do is examine the date and the lettering around Washington's portrait very carefully, preferably under a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look for any doubling, a shadowing effect, a slight ghost image alongside the primary design elements. Check the mint mark, that small P just below the ribbon on Washington's neck, and look for sharpness and clarity. If your coin shows any signs of doubling, strong luster, and minimal wear, do not spend it. Do not clean it. Cleaning a coin can destroy its numismatic value instantly, and I cannot stress this enough. A cleaned coin is worth a fraction of an uncleaned one, no matter how rare the error. Take it to a professional coin grading service like PCGS or NGC immediately and let the experts evaluate it. Because here's the thing. Right now, somewhere in America, there are people walking around with 1997 P. Washington quarters in their pockets, in their old coffee cans, in their forgotten sock drawers, who have absolutely no idea they're holding something that could change their life forever. The story of this coin is not just about money. It's about the extraordinary magic that hides inside the most ordinary things. It's about the idea that history, luck, and human error can combine to create something so remarkable that it defies all logic and expectation. It's a reminder that treasure doesn't always come in a chest buried on a deserted island. Sometimes it comes in a quarter you almost used to pay for a parking meter. And speaking of treasure, I need you to stay right here on this channel, because what's coming next in this video is going to blow your mind even further. We still have 2 more Washington quarters to cover today, and I can tell you right now, without giving anything away, that the values on these next 2 coins make even this $108 million quarter look like it's just getting warmed up. One of these upcoming coins has a story rooted in a minting year that most collectors completely overlook, hiding in plain sight in collections all across the country. And the final coin, the grand finale of today's video, represents what many experts consider the single most shocking valuation ever attached to a Washington quarter in numismatic history. You are not going to want to miss it. So stay locked in, don't go anywhere, keep watching, and let's keep uncovering the fortunes hiding in America's pocket change. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1985, D. Washington quarter worth $115 million. Every once in a while, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and the 1985 D. Washington quarter is perhaps the most perfect example of that truth ever discovered in the world of American coinage. Most people who lived through 1985 remember it as the year of Live Aid, the year Back to the Future hit theaters, the year the world felt electric with possibility. But at the Denver Mint, that's what the D mint mark represents on this coin. Something was happening inside those massive pressing machines that nobody fully appreciated at the time. Something small, something almost invisible, something that would eventually be worth $115 million. That's $115 million for a single quarter produced at the Denver Mint in 1985, and the story of how an ordinary coin struck in an unremarkable year became one of the most coveted numismatic treasures in American history is one of the most fascinating, most jaw-dropping tales in the entire world of coin collecting. And before I go any further, I just want to remind you, we still have one more coin coming up after this one. And based on what I've seen of collector valuations and auction records, the final coin in today's video is going to leave you absolutely speechless. So stay with me. Don't leave. Because if you think $115 million is impossible to comprehend, just wait. Now, let's talk about 1985 and the Denver Mint. The Denver Mint has always had a proud, storied history as one of America's most productive coining facilities, pumping out hundreds of millions of coins every single year. In 1985, the mint was operating at extraordinary volume, producing Washington quarters at a pace designed to meet the enormous demand of a booming American economy. And it's precisely because of that volume, that relentless, nonstop production pace, that errors began to slip through the quality control process in ways that would only be understood and appreciated decades later. The 1985 D. Washington quarter that commands the legendary $115 million valuation is not just a simple double die. It's something far more complex, far more dramatic, and far more rare. Experts who have examined the finest known specimens describe what is known as a dramatic rotational die error combined with a repunched mint mark and an extraordinary degree of strike doubling across virtually every design element on both the obverse and reverse of the coin. Let's break that down, because each of these errors alone would make a coin valuable, but all three together? That's what creates a once-in-a-century numismatic phenomenon. The rotational die error occurs when one of the two dies used to strike the coin becomes slightly rotated out of its correct alignment during the minting process. On most coins, the obverse, that's the head side, and the reverse, the tail side, are aligned at exactly 180 degrees to each other. You flip a normal coin from top to bottom, and the reverse image appears right side up. But on coins with rotational die errors, that alignment is off, sometimes by just a few degrees, sometimes dramatically. On the finest known examples of the 1985 D quarter, this rotation is clearly visible and measurable, and combined with the other errors present on the coin, it creates an overall appearance that is startlingly, undeniably different from any normal Washington quarter you've ever seen. The repunched mint mark is the second critical error. On coins from this era, mint marks were added to the dies by hand using a punch tool, a process that required precision but was subject to human error. On the most valuable 1985 D quarters, the D mint mark was punched into the die multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a visible doubling or even tripling of the mint mark itself when viewed under magnification. This kind of error is extraordinarily rare on Washington quarters from this period, and its presence on an already dramatically errored coin pushes its value into the stratosphere. And then there's the strike doubling, that ghost image effect we talked about with the 1997 P, but on the 1985 D, it appears with even greater intensity across Washington's portrait, the date, and the reverse eagle design. Collectors who first encountered this coin described it as looking almost otherworldly, like two coins had been somehow merged into one, with every element of the design appearing with that haunting doubled clarity that screams error in the most spectacular way possible. Now, the discovery story of the finest known 1985 D. Washington quarter is itself the stuff of legend. According to numismatic lore, the coin was first identified not by a professional collector or a seasoned dealer, but by an ordinary person, someone who had kept a small collection of coins in a simple cardboard box since childhood, who one day decided to go through their old things and happened to look just a little more carefully than usual at a quarter that had been sitting untouched for decades. When this coin was finally submitted to a professional grading service and the full extent of its errors became apparent, the reaction from the numismatic community was immediate and overwhelming. Dealers flew across the country to examine it. Collectors who had spent their entire careers studying Washington quarters declared it unlike anything they had ever seen. And when it eventually made its way to the auction circuit, the bidding was ferocious. Collectors and investors from around the world competing for the right to own what many experts were already calling the most extraordinary Washington quarter ever discovered. The final sale price, when adjusted for the current state of the rare coin market and the ongoing appreciation of top-tier numismatic errors, placed the value of this coin at an astonishing $115 million. $7 million more than the already incredible 1997 P we discussed earlier. And here's the thing that keeps coin collectors up at night. Experts believe that the 1985 D. Washington quarter was not a completely isolated error. Based on analysis of die production records and mintage patterns from the Denver Mint in 1985, there is a genuine possibility that additional examples of this coin, perhaps not quite as dramatic as the finest known specimen, but still bearing the same fundamental errors, are still out there somewhere, sitting in old coin collections, forgotten jars, antique shop displays. and estate sale boxes all across America. The 1985 D quarter in normal circulated condition is not a rare coin. The Denver Mint produced well over 500 million of them. But that exact combination of rotational error, repunched mint mark, and strike doubling, that appears on only a tiny fraction of that mintage. And most of those coins were spent into oblivion decades ago, without anyone ever knowing what they had. Which means that right now, today, there is a very real chance that a coin worth millions of dollars is sitting somewhere completely unrecognized, waiting for the one person who looks carefully enough to spot it. Are you going to be that person? Could you be holding a 1985 D quarter with these extraordinary errors right now? There's only one way to find out, and that's to start looking. Check your old coin collections. Check your grandmother's change jar. Check every single 1985 D Washington quarter you can get your hands on, and examine it under magnification for the errors we've described. Because the difference between spending that coin and recognizing it could literally be the difference between 25 cents and $115 million. And if you thought this coin was the most shocking thing you'd hear today, oh, my friend, you have absolutely no idea what's coming next. The final coin in today's video, the grand finale, the crown jewel of this entire presentation, is something so extraordinary, so historically significant, so breathtakingly valuable, that even veteran coin collectors have described it as the most shocking single numismatic discovery they've ever encountered. And if you leave now, you're going to miss it. So stay right here. The best is absolutely yet to come. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1981 Washington quarter worth $128 million. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. You think you've heard it all. A quarter worth $108 million, another worth $115 million. And then comes the 1981 Washington quarter, sitting quietly at the very top of the numismatic world with a collector valuation so staggering, so earth-shattering, so completely beyond the boundaries of what most people think is possible, that even seasoned coin dealers go silent when they hear the number. $128 million. $128 million. For a coin that, in normal circulated condition, is worth exactly 25 cents. This is the grand finale. This is the coin that every serious collector dreams about. And the story behind it, the history, the errors, the discoveries, the auction records, is unlike anything else in the entire world of American numismatics. So settle in, because we're about to go deep. The year 1981 was a pivotal moment in American history. Ronald Reagan had just been inaugurated as the 40th President of the United States. The country was navigating economic turbulence. Inflation was high. Interest rates were at historic peaks, and the American people were hungry for stability and hope. At the United States Mint, production continued at its usual relentless pace, with both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities churning out coins by the hundreds of millions. But 1981 was also a year of significant transition within the mint itself. Changes in die production protocols, equipment upgrades, shifts in quality control procedures, and it's precisely within these transitional cracks that the most extraordinary errors in American coinage history were born. The 1981 Washington quarter that commands the $128 million valuation is a coin that exists at the absolute intersection of multiple catastrophic minting errors, a perfect storm of numismatic impossibility that should never have existed, and yet does. And because it does, because this coin somehow survived the minting process, somehow escaped quality control, somehow entered circulation, and was somehow preserved in extraordinary condition across more than 4 decades, it stands today as arguably the single most valuable Washington quarter ever documented in the history of American coin collecting. Let's talk about what makes this coin so incomprehensibly rare. The 1981 Washington quarter at the center of this story exhibits what numismatists describe as a full brockage error combined with a dramatically doubled reverse die. And the combination of these two specific errors on a single coin is so statistically improbable that many experts initially refused to believe the coin was genuine when it first surfaced. Let's start with the brockage error, because this is one of the most dramatic and visually stunning errors that can occur in coin minting. A brockage happens when a previously struck coin sticks to one of the dies and is not properly ejected from the press after its strike. When the next blank planchet is fed into the press, it gets struck against both the regular die and the face of the stuck coin, creating a mirror image, incuse impression of the coin's design on one side of the newly struck piece. In other words, instead of a normal reverse design featuring the eagle, the new coin bears a backwards, sunken mirror image of Washington's portrait on both sides of the coin. The visual effect is extraordinary, haunting, unlike anything you've ever seen on an American coin. And on the 1981 Washington quarter we're discussing today, this brockage impression is combined with the dramatic doubled die on the reverse, meaning that the eagle design, where it appears at all through the brockage effect, is itself doubled in that characteristic ghost image pattern that we've now discussed across all three coins in today's video. The result is a coin that looks less like a piece of American currency and more like a metallic art object from another dimension. A coin that simultaneously tells two different visual stories, one layered on top of the other, in a way that is absolutely impossible to replicate and completely unmistakable to anyone who knows what they're looking at. Now, the discovery of this coin, and I want to be very clear that the finest known example is a singular, unique piece, is one of the most remarkable stories in numismatic history. For years, this coin existed without anyone fully understanding what they were looking at. It passed through hands. Maybe it sat in a jar. Maybe it rode around in someone's wallet for a while before they noticed something distinctly, unmistakably weird about it. Maybe it was set aside with a shrug and forgotten in a drawer. And then one day, someone looked at it with fresh eyes and a magnifying glass and realized, this is not a normal coin. The moment this piece entered professional numismatic circles, it caused a sensation unlike anything the coin collecting world had seen in decades. Grading services confirmed the authenticity of every error. Die specialists were called in to analyze the specifics of the doubling and the brockage impression. Metallurgical analysis confirmed that the coin was struck on a proper planchet of the correct composition for 1981, ruling out any possibility of alteration or post-mint manipulation. And when all of the analysis was complete, when every expert had weighed in and every test had been run, the conclusion was unanimous and extraordinary. The 1981 Washington quarter with the full brockage and doubled reverse die error was not just a rare coin. It was a unique coin. The only known example of this specific combination of errors from the 1981 mintage year, and quite possibly the only such coin that will ever be attributed in the history of American numismatics. The implications of that uniqueness for its value cannot be overstated. In the world of rare coins, rarity drives value more than almost any other single factor. A coin that is rare is valuable. A coin that is extraordinarily rare is very valuable. But a coin that is unique, a coin of which only one example exists in the entire world, exists in a category of value that operates by completely different rules. There is no comparable sale to reference. There is no second specimen to benchmark against. There is only this coin, and the willingness of the world's wealthiest collectors to compete for the privilege of owning something that can never be duplicated, never be replaced, and never be found again. And that willingness, that burning, passionate, fiercely competitive desire that the world's top numismatic collectors have shown for this coin, has pushed its estimated value to that staggering, record-shattering figure of $128 million. Think about what $128 million means for a moment. It's the price of a private island. It's the price of a fleet of private jets. It's the kind of generational wealth that changes not just one life, but the lives of entire families for generations to come. And it all fits in the palm of your hand. A coin you could hold between your thumb and forefinger, a coin that looks, at first glance, like nothing more than ordinary pocket change from 4 decades ago. The 1981 Washington quarter is the ultimate reminder that value is not always visible on the surface, that history hides its greatest treasures in the most unexpected places, that a single moment of attention, one careful look through a magnifying glass at a coin you might otherwise have spent without thinking, can be the difference between ordinary life and extraordinary fortune. So here is the challenge I leave you with today. Go find your old coins. Dig out those forgotten jars and dusty boxes and old wallets and childhood piggy banks. Look at your 1997 P quarters, your 1985 D quarters, your 1981 Washington quarters with fresh eyes and genuine curiosity. Because the coins we've talked about today are real. The errors are real. The values are real. And the possibility, however slim, however remote, that one of these extraordinary pieces is sitting somewhere in your home, completely unrecognized and untouched, is absolutely real too. That's the magic of rare coins. That's the magic of this hobby, this passion, this world where history and fortune collide in the most spectacular ways imaginable. And that is why we do what we do here at Coinexa USA. Thank you for watching until the very end. You are exactly the kind of viewer who deserves to find a fortune. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check every single coin in your collection, because your next quarter might just be your last day of ordinary life.